Hello and welcome back to The Dive. I'm Jat, joined by Kobe and Azael, and we have the privilege of welcoming everyone to our second episode.
The privilege.
The privilege.
The honor.
Yeah, I should just ad-lib these anyway. We're doing power rankings today, but the tweak here is it's essentially predicting what the standings will look like at the end of the regular season, and then we also haven't talked to each other about the power rankings, so we're going in completely blind.
Yeah. And then we're going to make kind of an aggregate at the end to have the dive power rankings. We'll see how close we are to each other, I think there's going to be some differences because this year actually seems pretty hard to rank a lot of the teams going into it, especially once you get towards the middle, towards the bottom. It's like a lot of these rosters, I'm looking at them and I'm like, is this really the worst team in the league? Like,
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of weird saying that about some of these different teams.
Exactly. It's hard to pick a number 10. Like it's really hard to even for me to do the top of it. And like there's my first draft of this list was like the safe list. This is what people like the general public is expecting to see for the power ranking. Like the Reddit crowd that pays a lot of attention to league is going to have this. And then I was like,
Edgy Jack came out after that.
No.
He was like,
I'm actually going to go.
Hipster.
I don't want to be hipster. I just want to go with exactly what I think
Up the
and try
gaming
not to be influenced by the other things.
Yeah.
Who'd you say first?
Optic game.
Yeah, his list is gonna.
He's like, Greenwall, baby, let's go.
There is a 1 in my ranking for Optic.
Oh, shit.
So do you want to start at number 1 or number 10?
Well, you better start it off at 10 now because I know where you're going for that one.
I feel like we should start at number 1. Let's work our way
It is more
down.
exciting.
Yeah, let's work our way
Okay,
down.
spoiler alert for
Is
the
it?
end of the list.
Damn, that's hype.
Yeah.
You want to start us off?
No.
Okay, well, I have at number 1, I have TSM. I think this is going to be what most people have. I don't know.
Yep.
I would be surprised if either you did not, simply because, you know, if you want to talk about safe, this does seem like by far the safest. You're taking a team that has won, you know, multiple titles in a row in NA, 3 times in a row. You're adding a bot lane that won 4 times in a row in Europe. You know, perhaps the best bottom side of the map, I think, ever put together, you know, you could say on a Western team. Sven, Mithy, and Bjergsen is like extremely good. They have so many championships under their belt, so much experience. Hanser was very good in NA last year, was solid at Worlds. The only real question mark is how good is Mike Young going to be? But like, honestly feel like it doesn't even matter. Like you have such a good team with
It doesn't matter.
It does matter how good your jungler is.
It doesn't matter.
It does.
It matters
a lot.
It matters, but I cannot see him performing at a level that is like so low that it just drags everything down. Is more my point, right? Like I have faith.
Man.
I have faith that
Holy crap, Azael is coming out hard.
this is not flaming Mike Young. This is
I know. I'm saying you're coming out very strong for TSM.
Yeah.
I did not expect this like level of speech for TSM.
I just think looking at.
He's taking your crown. Is that what you're saying, Chat? Of the TSM.
I just think looking at the rosters, it's so hard to bet against a team that has this many championships, that has this much experience.
Okay, so
I mean, based on that, yeah, like it's a 3-time championship for Hanser and Bjergsen, right?
4 times in a row for
And
for
for
Zen and
G2, 3 times in a row for Sven and Mithy because they didn't join G2 until
that's
summer
true.
of 2016.
Yep,
But still,
true. Yeah.
like 4 of those players are 3-time back-to-back champions. Kobe.
yeah, I mean, I can't believe that you guys are like so. Oh yeah, it's 100% TSM. Like completely convinced by it.
I'm
I actually
not completely
debated
convinced.
for a super long time. Like we were doing, I was doing mine
Yeah.
right before we started here.
Super
but
long time.
I was-
Last 5 minutes. debated.
I was debating it for a very long time because the biggest difference to me this year from the previous years, and you know, yes, TSM and the pedigree, and they have the history and all of that, and we can go back years and years with it. But this year, the biggest change to me is that while Andy Reginald is always like super focused on fixing one problem and getting the best TSM he can get, this year he actually had to give up a lot of power to the other teams in order to make the change that he wanted to make and the direction they want to go in with, you know, the communication. And they said that Biofrost and Svenskeren probably didn't have, you know, weren't good at communicating, so they really wanted to fill those roles. And so he went out as TSM in this unique position of, we have Bjergsen as a resident. Like that is why TSM, you know, is the crown jewel, right?
Yep.
They're the only team that could import, you know, Sven and Mythic, because everybody else has to import a solo laner.
Yeah.
So they do that, but in doing that, they kind of give up that godlike power where they had control of Doublelift and Bjergsen, you know, basically the best resident players. And so that opened up for a lot of power in the other teams and the other rosters, which to me, while I was looking so heavily at Team Liquid, I was looking very heavily at CLG with the improvements that they made.
I like what you're saying.
I feel like there are a lot of other contenders that while TSM looks very strong, the power diffusal that they had to do to like bring that together, because they're looking at only Worlds, I think overall made NA stronger, and the other contenders for that top spot look pretty good.
I think there is huge contention for that first spot, and while I agree that they have a lot of championships, and I agree that TSM had to make changes based on their consistent Worlds failures, I don't think it's for sure a clear upgrade, because they were 3-time champions with that old roster. And now they've essentially tried to construct a super team, right? They took 2 of the best players from Europe. They're throwing them on TSM. They're saying, Mithy, you're now the leader, where his regular seasons are very inconsistent and he pulls it together towards playoffs and is okay internationally, right? They had that great MSI run, but their Worlds performances too have been not good, right? 1-5 and 3-3 if you look at the last 2 group stages. So I don't have TSM at first in my power rankings. I have TSM at second in these power rankings. But it's because I have huge question marks about Mike Young, and I have question marks about how quickly they will be able to gel together. If you think about the last time TSM made large roster changes, they changed out after the 2015 World Championships, everyone but Bjergsen. This year, they changed out everyone except Bjergsen and Hanser, and they changed their coach. It's pretty much the same scope of change. When we were doing best of ones, they were 6th in the regular season. So I do not think it's a given that they're going to finish first. They added the European LCS MVP, the best AD carry in North America, right? Then they added Hanser and Sven Skaren, who were 2 pretty hype players, and they finished 6th. Right? So, like, I definitely don't think it's a sell that they're first for sure.
I mean, I think that Song is someone who also brings a lot to this roster. Like, I was so impressed by what Song did with Immortals. And, you know, someone who is that strong, like, voice as a coach, I think is something that TSM has been missing. Parth has been, I think, a good coach, but he was always more intended to be an analyst. He was never really meant for that role originally. And I just think that Song has really kind of proven himself with what he did with Immortals, and I think he was such a good coach there that alone to me is a really big upgrade for TSM. And it's not that I think that none of these teams can contest TSM. That's not really what I was trying to say. I just couldn't see a world in which I predicted anyone else at the top of the power rankings. It's not that I don't think that Liquid could contest them. It's not that I don't think that CLG could
But
do
you
it,
don't see any of them winning.
At the end of the day,
you're making the
for my power rankings, I think that TSM should be number 1. I think that they're by far the odds-on favorite to me. Like, if I'm putting money on this, that's the team I'm going to put money on, because I think with the experience, this is not the same type of thing where you like brought in Yellow Star and these sorts of things. Like, I know I've seen some comparisons of like, oh, well, why is Vending Mythy going to be good when Yellow Star wasn't? Like, I just think that this is, I mean, like,
Yellow Star is a whole different player,
that's
right?
Not even.
But at least the expectations coming in were eerily similar.
They were, but
Yellow Star was an MVP.
I did not have high expectations for Yellow Star.
I hate those comparisons because I did exactly.
Did too,
I did not have those high expectations for Yellow Star, right?
That's why I don't.
We knew very well coming in that he wasn't the sharpest mechanically and all this stuff.
Is Mythy the sharpest mechanically?
I don't think that he's nearly.
He is better mechanically.
He's much better.
Yes,
far better. Anyways,
but he's also not the best mechanically.
Yeah, I think to me, all the positives that you're talking about and all the moves, I think TSM made good improvements.
Correct.
But they are only looking at Worlds. So looking at the North American LCS, which we're ranking right now, how they're going to finish just in spring, by the way. This is for the spring.
This is for the spring regular season standing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And to me, the time period.
Should we do like?
I think they will go to
season?
MSI.
You think
I would
should
rather
predict
look
who
at
wins
end
the whole
of
split,
season, but
or do you need to change your?
I don't know if that
that
changes for you guys. For me in my head, when I'm thinking end of spring, I'm thinking which team goes to MSI, and I'm saying TSM goes to MSI for North America.
The reason I'm bringing up the timeline is because of the Mike Young factor, and I think that's the one area on the with the roster shuffles that you can actually look at TSM and be like, okay, well, Mike Young, he didn't have the best end performances there. while he is a great communicator, he is a great player, you know, and there is a lot of growth potential I see there. That's why the time period is a big factor for me, because I think that he'll start off, you know, pretty slow. I think he'll probably be, you know, making a couple mistakes early on. We saw it All-Stars and stuff, you know, there's a lot of dives and stuff like that. But I do think that TSM, and like you're talking about, bringing on Song and the organization, I think that surrounded by those players,
Such a
and
good
that coaching
position
staff,
to be.
and I think that he definitely will succeed eventually. So that's why
Right.
a little bit of time in the changing of where we're judging these rankings actually, to me, makes a decent amount of
the name for these power rankings was end of regular season standings.
Yeah.
That's a very easy time to judge. So you still have TSM
Yep.
first. Yeah. What's your first?
Even though
Yeah.
I'm saying all of this stuff in, you know, being a big proponent for the other teams, I still in the end did also put TSM in number 1. Even after all of the debate I went through. But that I was saying that's why it was so difficult for me. And that's why it was really surprising to have
he's going in strong. He's for sure. So
I have a lot of faith in the Song and the team. Yeah.
And I think the team did exactly what they needed to do. I think they're going to be very good. But my team at number 1, and this is definitely something that I struggled with a lot.
Right? Spoil it.
Yeah, it's because of the experience of Power of Evil at Worlds. You beat TSM. They're going number 1. No, my number 1 team this year is CLG.
Wow.
Whoa!
Yeah, and this is definitely something that I don't think a lot of people will do, but I don't want to regret this down the road of being like, I don't want to be that guy in like week 6, be like, I called it. I knew CLG was going to be good. And they'll be like, then why didn't you put him first in your power rankings, Jat? No, because I want to be the one who calls this.
Okay. Then if you get it wrong, we also get to
blame you
for a long time.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
That is the trade-off, but it's going to be worth it because they're going to be the best. Okay. Here's essentially why. CLG has incredibly strong solo laners that I think get slept on. I had Darshan as the best top laner in North America last year, and that was playing with a revolving door. He played with 3 different junglers last year, Xmithy, Dardoch, and Oh My God, and he was consistently good with all of them and was better as the summer split progressed. Huhi is someone who went from a super inconsistent player to being a mid laner who plays like no one else in the North American LCS, and I think is pretty much universally respected. But the big wild card for me here is a tandem of Reignover being on a team with strong solo laners again, and the jungle changing back a little bit to be much more similar to what it was in 2016 when he was so successful on Immortals. Because I see Reignover as an extremely strategic jungler who's incredibly good at pathing and is very, very good at playing with strong solo laners. Like that's what he did with Huni back in Immortals, where he would just always get ahead of the other jungler by 2 or 3 levels, crush them that way. On top of that, Nick Allen, the investment with Madison Square Garden, the fact that they've been trying to get Reignover for multiple years, the fact that it's a bit of a refresher, I actually think, to not have Aphromoo and splitting his responsibilities up a little bit. I got to talk with Zix. He's making this like responsibility system where everyone has their own like little bits
of
flow
chart.
It's one of the chore charts. You clean the floor, you take out the trash.
He's very secretive, so he like didn't even tell me like exactly what it was, but it's like they don't have a clear shot caller. They have a system for what they want to do and who he's going to be running probably more than other people, but that's about it. And anyway, they were good with Oh My God, who I think was like the 9th or 10th best jungler in the NA LCS. And now you're switching him out for a guy who was an MVP. And I am right now willing to write off his year on Liquid because of their awful solo laners. And I feel like that organization was in a huge flux for pretty much a whole year. And that's a big risk. I absolutely understand that's a big risk. But if he is 2016 Reignover, this is a long rant because I feel like I need to preemptively justify
You're going to have to explain a lot. Go ahead.
And I'll let you guys counter afterwards. But that's kind of why. I think solo laners, Reignover, and their bot lane's also quite good. I think Biofrost is great mechanically.
So, I mean, to me already, it's like you're saying you're going to write off the whole year that happened with Reignover.
It's a prediction.
I don't, and I mean, and that's fair, but I won't give you that, like, because I think, you know, it's justifiable that CLG could be at the top. I have them pretty high in my rankings, but to pretend that the whole last year did not happen of Reignover with Liquid, I can't do, because to me it was not just about how the rest of his team played. It's looking at him, in a vacuum and looking at his decisions and how he performed game to game. And a lot of the time, I was left wanting with Reignover. I was so impressed with him in previous years, back on Fnatic, back on Immortals, but he never really seemed to get it going. And one of my biggest concerns with Reignover as a player for longevity wise has been the fact that with Immortals, at the end of that year, he started struggling. There was a lot of talk about wrist issues, how he couldn't practice as much, how he was in pain. Then going into the next year, All-Stars, he struggled. Ever since really the end of his last year on Immortals, he has not been the same player to me. If he could be back to that level, I would maybe be all on board the hype train, but I think that's such a big question mark. For me, and also, while Biofrost did amazing with Doublelift, Stixxay and Aphromoo did not have a great year, and this could certainly be a reinvigorated bot lane. It's two young guys who are kind of now separated from their superstars, but we don't know what they're going to really look like yet. Like, Stixxay has had such high highs. I think Biofrost was really strong, but again, with Stixxay, his last year was not really at the level that I think it needs to be on the best team in the league against, Sven and Mithy and Doublelift and Olay, because those two bot lanes are just monstrous to me.
I want to really quickly, just before Kobe jumps in, say one more thing about Reignover. Last year was definitely very bad, but when he was successful in 2016, he pioneered a bit of the North American style where he stopped other junglers from being able to gank, so to speak, because he would always find kind of the counter jungling pattern where he would take one card into the jungle, and then since he'd have a level advantage on you, he was perfect about finding his way back there and having laners that would support him. And then the next year, A, he didn't have laners who could support him because they were always pushed in. B, that jungling was no longer incentivized because catch-up experience was so huge. So jungling was completely different last year, where it was all about making these improvised, somewhat random moves to trick the other players and get good ganks off. And Reignover's just not good at that. But now I feel like the 2016 style works again.
I would say that in addition to individual mistakes that we did see from Reignover, like you're talking about, Azale, the other part of your argument with the super strong solo laners and pushing and going for invades and stuff like that. I mean, I love Darshan. I think Darshan's extremely strong top laner, and he's extremely versatile. However, I don't see him like smashing in someday and Huni and
Flame,
stuff like that. So like the top lane talent in North America right now is heavily imported
really
with a lot of if I'm only looking at lane phase, like I'm not even talking about overall players, game sense and going bottom lane, playing with the team and all this stuff. Huni and Someday as pure laners is insane. Like even in Korea, like those that's pretty formidable top lane competition. So I feel like that is also a pretty hefty leap, but I definitely like where you're going. And I
remember the game last year where Someday played Nasus against Darshan Shen.
I do not.
Darshan smashed that game. Like, not only was he winning lane, he was teleporting all over the place, crushing him. So like he played against the imported top laners last year. But I like how you said you like where I'm going.
Exactly. I was about to go. I
like the part where you said I was smart. The rest of that stuff, I wasn't about it. But that part was good, though.
I was about to go on the offensive for CLG here.
Yeah.
Because I also have them very highly rated. And I do especially like, looking at, basically, we take our last known quantity, the last time that we saw these teams play, and then we go with the theoretical upgrades or downgrades that they made in the offseason. And I feel like CLG, even with all these question marks on Reignover, have made pure upgrades. I mean,
how is Biofrost a pure upgrade?
I think that Biofrost is a pure upgrade. The team has talked a lot about how he is actually communicating very heavily, and Biofrost did a video where it seems like he took that explanation for his removal from TSM fairly personally, and and people change. Like, people forget that you can take criticism in and actually improve. And I feel like Biofrost is definitely an extremely hard-working guy.
Right.
And yes, obviously they probably told him this throughout the year, and he'd been trying to improve on this for a while. But to me, it doesn't seem like the biggest loss if you have a team that does have Huni who talks a lot, Reignover who talks a lot, Darshan who talks a lot, Like they've been communicating and stuff with Afremu for a very long time. So I have a hard time believing that they're just going to be brainless without Afremu on the team there.
They'll
So
be fine.
I feel like that isn't the biggest loss as far as the direction of the team, because a lot of it to me also came from Zix, came from the coach, and him. I have faith in him, preparing these guys before going into teams and sending them in with good game plans. So I feel like the biggest takeaway that people are usually cite with the roster moves for CLG here isn't that big of a drop off for me. And I have a ton of respect for Afrim. I think he's one of the best, and as far as in-game leaders and all that, but I don't think that CLG got hit that hard in that retrospect. To me, the biggest question mark is Reignover's individual play.
Yeah.
Because I saw a lot of actual individual like mechanical mistakes and stuff from him too.
I will say like the only thing, like I cannot agree with Battlefront being a pure upgrade, because like while I'm never going to say that this is like a brainless team, I think that there's some really smart players. They have an amazing coach. These guys are going to be talking. The question that I would pose is like, the way I'm looking at it is every single time you ever hear the comms for CLG in like a clutch fight, like it's always Afremu. It's always him calling what they need to do, saying where they need to be, saying they're still going to win the fight, saying he's going to engage on this person. It's always been him. And I'm not saying that this team is going to fail. I'm not saying this team cannot have good shot calling, but to call it a pure upgrade, I don't agree with that.
Okay, maybe your pure is being taken pure to you.
Pure
I'm
to
saying
me is
over
like upgrade in every way.
Yeah, okay, so
Right.
overall upgrade.
I could see that, yeah. But like as far as shot calling, I just think that I can't.
Not
I
in
can't call it an
absolutely
upgrade.
every
Yeah.
single way.
Yeah, not in all aspects
sure.
upgrade,
Yeah.
but I think
Okay.
in net. How about this?
Okay.
Net
upgrade. Net
I
pure.
accept your definition.
Purely
Okay,
net.
good.
Let's go to number
Yeah,
two.
we spent 30 minutes, 25.
Well, we've been discussing
We've
these.
already
so-
discussed like two full teams,
Exactly.
basically. But
Yeah.
so that number one was TSM, CLG. What's your number two? Mine
Liquid.
is TSM.
Mine's Liquid.
So I think I know what your number three is.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Liquid then.
I mean, Liquid, one of the bigger reasons that I have put Liquid so high, I mean, is obviously individual talent is extremely high on this team. But one of the things I really thought a lot about when I'm looking at these teams and how successful I think they're going to be, it's like, can any other teams in the league really compete consistently with the bottom lanes of the top two teams? And I felt that Doublelift and Olay and Zvenamithi are probably head and shoulders above the rest of the bottom lanes in the league. You're
Mhm.
also taking essentially 3/5 of Immortals, and then Impact. I don't know if like how much of an upgrade, downgrade, side grade you want to call that, because I think Flame was actually really good for
Mhm.
Immortals last year. But I think Doublelift is a clear upgrade, especially based on things that people will talk about with like the focus that Olay had. He felt he couldn't focus on laning phase as much because he didn't feel that the laning phase was as strong and things like this. Like I think that this team overall is certainly upgraded from Old Immortals, and Old Immortals was already a very strong team. And I think just even the AD carry change alone, when put in with this, like already you have playmaking support, you have Impact who has so much experience in shot calling, you have Smithy who is again like someone who's a very smart jungler who is going to be a guy who can make calls, make plays, set up early game plans, and get those lanes ahead. Like you're already set up with a very powerful team. And one of the things I also really like about Liquid is that although it is them trying to kind of build a super team, it feels like they do have some more role players. This is not like a Doublelift and a Jensen and like a whoever who is and a Huni who are all trying to get all the farm everywhere. This feels like a team that Doublelift can be a protected Doublelift type thing. Impact can play.
I think a team with Doublelift, Jensen, and Huni would be badass. I feel like they would not have problems.
I'm not saying it's a bad. I'm not saying it's a bad team, but we know that super teams have kind of failed in the past. Like when you look at KT and things,
for sure.
because you do need people to take a back role, right? Like you need the guy to be like, "Yep, I'm gonna be down 100 CS on a tank. You can have it." Like an Impact can be that guy. Smithy can be that guy, depending on what the team needs and depending on what the meta is. So I just think that this is a team that should work from the word go.
Right.
So I also have them at second. And again, remember that I'm keeping in mind the timeline here. And I think this is spring. And I do think that Team Liquid, this should be one of the ones with a lot of success pretty early on to me. Because as you said, they have a lot of parts that just work together. They've either been on the same team or they're seasoned veterans. Like there is not even any hint of recent rookie on this, right? Olay would be the most recent.
All 5 players went.
And he exactly,
and he was the best player in the league.
He was one of the best players in the league. He played with 2 of the other guys on this team for so long. Blah 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 with all these guys. So like, there's no hint.
And Doublelift even played for Liquid for a while last year and was very successful there.
Thank you for supporting my speech there going on here. But
we're on the same team. We both have Liquid second.
yeah, there you go.
I'm gonna have to be all negative Nancy about him when I have him third.
Yeah, but I would have to say my biggest question mark because I also was kind of heavily debating the number 2 spot. To me, while you're looking at the individual players in the bottom lane, how are Doublelift and Olay actually going to be able to work together? Because one of the big things for me, while I absolutely love Doublelift, and I think he is one of the all-time greatest, if not, as far as resident players for the AD carry position here, he is a very strong-willed, AD carry and bottom layer. And to me, Olay, that season where he got, voted best supporter in the league was due to a very specific style that a lot of other supports were not necessarily able to pull off, a lot of the hard engages and the roaming plays that he was making. And a lot of it was in tandem with Smithy, actually.
Yes.
So if the Smithy Olay, power that we're talking about that we saw a lot on Immortals is going to be one of their big strengths, how is that working in with the Doublelift plan?
One quick question for both of you guys is, do you think that really differs a lot from the Rush Hour bot lane at its prime? Because I always saw Aframu at his best as very similar to Olay at his best last year as the playmaking roaming style, and we saw that Doublelift was already someone who could succeed in that sort of a setup.
I see a little bit of a difference in those two because I always thought Doublelift and Aframu was the Rush Hour bot lane where they would get early kills, and then once the lane was won, they would leave. Whereas when Olay was at his best with Cody-san, he would just leave. Like, Cody-san would just be by himself at level 3, and Olay was going to get kills, and then he was strong, and he would roam down with the jungler, and then they would 3v2. Like, that was kind of how they work. But I do think, as far as their ability to play playmaking supports, they would work. I have a lot of question marks about Team Liquid, and I can see why you look at their roster and you see the 5 players that have been to Worlds and you see all these other things that you would rank them second. I'll let you get in first.
Because I want to touch on the bottom lane thing before we move on first. Also, it's not as clear cut as, oh, this guy's a laner and this guy's a roamer.
Of course
for support roles. And to me, a lot of it does come in with specifically how Doublelift likes to play his lanes. And because I've already seen in some of the videos where both those guys are talking and, they have a very friendly relationship and all that. But it does seem like he definitely wants to play a specific way as far as when regardless of the times that you roam, when you're actually in lane and how you actually want to play that lane. So to me, it's going to be really interesting to see how they pull that off, because Olay talked a lot about being able to concentrate on game as a whole versus on the actual 2 versus 2 laning phase. So I just think that is going to be very interesting how that does play off. And that's literally my one concern as far as not immediately hitting the ground and like winning all their games and stuff. I think that would be the only question mark. But I think even despite that, like the power out of the gate from this team should be strong.
All right. Here's where I'm going to ask some questions about how highly we rate this team. So you see it and you kind of think super team, and you hear the rumors about Impact being the highest paid player in the LCS.
Yeah.
That to me makes him by far the most overrated player in the LCS. Like, let's actually go through who the best top laners in the North American LCS are. Like, number 1, probably Huni, right? Would be the best top laner. And if we're talking as well regular season top laners. So like last year as an example, the summer split of last year as an example. Someday was number 1, Haunter was number 2, Flame was number 3, Darshan was number 4.
Are you talking about actual rankings, or are you talking about?
I was talking about the voting for best top laners in the league, right? Impact was 5, and now you're adding Huni into the list. Does that make Impact the 6th best top laner in the league?
So what I will say is I think that Impact had a pretty subpar regular season, but I do think that he performed a lot better at Worlds and in the regional tournament and stuff in general.
I totally agree with that. This dude is a clutch performer. He was amazing in Gauntlet, Worlds 2016, Gauntlet of 2017, and good in Worlds. But in North America, he's been here for like 3 years. He's he's never really had a great regular season.
2016, I think he was actually very strong. Like that was like it was the end of the regular season.
It was the gauntlet run because they didn't perform in the regular season necessarily. They had to qualify through the gauntlet where top dive became a thing, and he smashed.
I think this is a really good point to bring up as far as the $1 million rumors and all that, and the pay scale. Even if he is not the absolute #1 top laner, though, I don't think it drops them that much if he is like in a similar level.
Yeah, and like those 6 top laners are clearly in a league of their own when compared to the other guys. So like there's a world where Impact beats Someday in lane, right? For sure. But like in no way is he like, oh my God, they got the guy in the top lane. Half the teams in the league are going to have a top laner that matches him, no problem.
And I agree with that as far as if you're talking like dollars to donuts, you know, who's the most overrated or whatever, then sure, I could agree with that. But if Team Liquid has 10 times as many dollars and can afford to do that,
let us get a better donut.
Exactly. Then it doesn't really matter, right? Like at the end of the day, if we're not in a world where there's a salary cap, right?
Yeah.
If
the money doesn't matter in the context of this conversation.
Exactly.
At all.
Right? Because if you can still like if getting Impact for $1 million meant that they couldn't have Doublelift and Olay, then I'd be like, God, Liquid, what are you doing? But they still got Doublelift and Olay.
They still have everyone they wanted.
Pobelter and Smithy.
But it's just, I feel like when people hear that number, they just assume they got this godlike, unstoppable top laner.
I'm on the same page.
I think it is a good point.
Yeah.
He's I would say he's for sure not the best. I would say he is in the mix, like probably between 3rd and 5th or 6th, right? Like he's in that mix. And I think that at his best, he can also add a lot of intangibles. Cloud9 has been pretty vocal about the leadership and the confidence that he brings to the game. You know, that was one of the main differences I heard a lot of them talking about between him and Ray. Even though Ray is an incredible mechanical player, sometimes they get in these tough situations. They didn't really feel like they knew what to do when Impact was not in the game. He's someone who does have the confidence, who does have the experience. He is a world champion. He can say, hey guys, this is what we do. This is how we win the game. And that also brings something.
And also speaking of that, I'm trying to think about the way that the Team Liquid will function as a team. And I do wonder whether it's like Xmithy's show or whether it's Doublelift's show.
Yeah.
Because Doublelift has been a shot caller in the past. He has a pace he likes to play the game at. I think his solo laners, Impact and Pobelter, are not resource-intensive solo laners. So if there's a guy who is going to get resources poured into him in this team, it is going to be Doublelift.
Yeah.
And then he would kind of try and carry through the team fights. And that's when whether or not he lanes and has synergy with Ole becomes extremely important. Because Pobelter has a large amount of value in the fact that he is a non-imported mid laner, not in the fact that he smashes other mid laners. Like, again, you start ranking the mid laners in the North American LCS. There's Bjergsen, Jensen, but Bivens coming over, who he's really good. I probably put Pobelter at 5th, right? So they have 2 solo laners.
Top 10 out of 10, baby.
He's top 10. But, like, that's 2 solo laners that are like 5th, right?
Yeah.
So your jungler, AD carry, and support better be godlike if you're going to be the best team in the league.
But it's
and
also,
I still have them.
It's
good,
also, I would
right?
not say that they're clearly 5th, right? Like, so that's, I would contest you a little bit on that.
Okay.
Like, I think that they're in the mix. Like, they're very, like, so Pobelter, I think, when he was performing, you know, at his best on Immortals, people started talking about this guy as maybe the 2nd best mid laner in the league for a while. Like, he had this streak.
When was he ranked better than Jensen and Bjergsen?
I think back when it's been a while, I guess, like since maybe even 2016 season and stuff. People were talking about him as one of the best.
He is definitely, like they've said, top tier. I just never had him top 2.
No, I'm not saying you specifically. I'm just saying that I think at his best he can perform at that level where I think he is, you know, in the discussion for being at least like 3rd in the league and stuff. He's certainly had times throughout his career where he has been in that position. Like, I'm not saying he's the best. I'm not saying the Impact is the best. But again, I just wouldn't say that they're also like clearly 5th, clearly 6th, clearly below Hui, clearly below Febivin, right? That's the only thing I kind of disagree with.
As far as it being, you know, X person's show or whatever, I do not see that happening for any of them, right? In the team. This is a team where I see a lot of discussion. Like the discussion after scrims and stuff, I feel like should be very fruitful. With we're talking about how much veteran status, you know, they have on this team and how many years of play experience.
And whether or not they can come to an agreement, I think is a big thing because Kane was the coach of Team Liquid last year. He is still the coach of them this year. Jarge is their head analyst. He was with them all of last year. He used to be on TSM. He's here now. Like, that's the beginnings of their coaching staff, and they're building out performance coaches and other things in their training facility. And like, is this actually going to be a player run team or is it going to be a hard coach run team? Because I actually think it can function as mostly a player run team.
Well, what I was about to say is like, how will the communication in game actually pan out? Because communication in game works with clear feeding of information from people and quick decision making. So with these guys all being so experienced and having ways that they think about the game, to me, aligning the ways that they think about the game before actually getting in there, so that they could reduce the amount of decision making or discussion that could possibly happen with all those minds, I think would be very important. So I actually think that while you look at all these guys and you're like, oh, it should be so easy to coach them, I think it actually, the biggest difficulty would be aligning them all so that they can make those decisions quickly, because they could probably come up with the correct, quote unquote answer in most of the scenarios. But how quickly can they feed the information? How quickly can they listen to it and actually make that choice? And at what stages of the game are they either going to play for the double lift bottom lane, or are they going to play for the Smithy Ole, roaming plays? Right?
And I agonized over where to put Team Liquid, because I think you can make an argument for them to finish first, and I think you can make an argument that they're not going to synergize well and drop to fourth or fifth. So I ended up putting them at 3 because I think they will work pretty well. But the whole reason I have them higher is because I have more faith in CLG than you guys do.
Yeah.
So
and
number 3,
we can go
number
to number 3. I mean,
I think we've talked about all 3 teams.
Yeah, we have.
So I have TL at number 3. You guys have CLG, I assume.
Yep. And to me, this is kind of the clear top tier teams. Like these are the ones that to me are in the discussion more for who's going to be going to MSI, right? I would be shocked to see anyone outside of these 3 be the team that goes to MSI. It's not that I don't think there's any other good teams. It's just that I think that they are a clear step down.
Okay.
So the biggest thing then, I almost immediately jumped to fourth after that statement, because the biggest thing to me is, well, first let's say who do you have in fourth? Because this one was pretty difficult.
Do you agree?
And
first of all,
I
that
actually
is a separate tier.
I think so.
Yeah.
But I also think that the next 2 teams on my list could potentially be really good. But there's just a lower likelihood, and I'm not willing.
And there's more question marks
to
before the
predict
start of the season.
In the same way that I was predicting
the lower and lower we get, the more question marks there are. So
Yes.
they all have potential.
I feel like I'm going to be the outlier here. I have 100 Thieves at fourth.
Okay. I think we.
I don't think you're that far off, because I had them 5, like right under that, and I was debating. Like
So who do you?
I don't think that's crazy. I don't think
you guys are
I
C9.
have Clutch.
You have Clutch.
Yeah.
Oh, we got all 3
this
different
is
ones.
fun.
Then.
You have Cloud9 then.
because
surely someone has Cloud9.
I did end up putting Cloud9.
Okay.
But to me, it was a big struggle. I guess I'll just start.
Yeah,
with
this one was
Cloud9.
hard.
I guess I'll just start with Cloud9, because that's probably the biggest name that people would assume would show up very early in our ranking.
Man, I'm excited.
Right?
This finally took a turn that I wasn't expecting.
To me, my biggest point of debate was obviously Licorice, right?
Yeah.
Everybody in the top lane, that is, a clear downgrade. Pure, maybe even there for Azael from
Crystal
Impact.
clear.
Pure, clear downgrade from Impact. But obviously, we don't have to go into the reasons behind it, and the money and blah, blah, blah. But Licorice, I do, like that there's a lot of hype about him, in the challenger scene and all that. And I've actually saw him on Beyond the Rift and a couple of his interviews that he did, and he seems like he's a really good head on his shoulders.
Yep.
That being said, he himself is like, I'm probably going to start out, middle of the pack, I'm thinking kind of slow, and hopefully ramp up to being a top 3 top laner.
Right. And as we just discussed, the top 6
are insane.
Amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're middle of the pack, you're already
middle of the 7th to 10th pack.
Yeah,
like that's
right?
basically where you're fighting.
So yeah, so I think that that in addition to coming from challenger scene and not having been in LCS and all that stuff, that coming together, if you're looking at Cloud9's offseason, because we're talking about last time we saw them versus the offseason moves that they changed, I think it does drop them, right? From before.
Yeah.
However, I kept comparing them, right, to the other 2 that were pretty close for me, which were 100 Thieves and Clutch Gaming, which are your guys' choices, and trying to move them up. And it just, again, looking at the roster and going through it, it just made me, again, realize how much I valued Smoothie Sneaky, and Jensen. Just like the
Mhm.
3 that they did keep, to me are just have so much value there. And I do think that a lot of people love to shit on Svenskeren, and I think that people are underrating him. But even if you're not even taking that into account, the Jensen, Sneaky, and Smoothie to me are so incredibly solid and play together so well that if we're again looking at the timeline like spring, I expect them to be strong carries for this team.
So this was really hard for me. The next 3 positions were all really hard for me. I think that there's strong arguments for really any 3 of the teams. What I will say made me move Cloud9 down was, so I thought about Worlds. Everyone's immediately going to think about Worlds. That's the most recent thing. They did well at Worlds. They were the best performing North American team. They almost made semifinals, right? Very impressive performance overall from them, especially when you consider that they came in through the gauntlet. But then you have to remember, why were they in the gauntlet, right? They were 4th place in the regular season. They then lost to Dignitas 3-1, got 5th, 6th in the NA LCS playoffs, right? That's with the team that you're saying this is a clear downgrade from, right? They were 4th. This is, last split, so it's
right.
Now you're taking this team that I don't think Svenskeren is bad by any means. I think Svenskeren will probably have a great year. I actually have quite a bit of confidence that that's going to happen. But I have to think, does a great year for him look way better than Contracts last year? And to me, I actually thought Contracts was the 2nd best performing jungler in North America last year. So if Svenskeren is the 2nd best jungler in North America this year, he had a damn good year, right? And then I'm looking at, all right, you have a team that was like around 4th that struggled to even, doing playoffs, and then they had to go run the gauntlet. And now you lost Impact, this person who they have credited so much as being a rock in the top lane, telling them what to do, knowing what to do in these tough situations. And you're bringing in a rookie. And I think if Licorice can immediately perform, then I totally buy them jumping up to 3rd, 4th, around there, and being really good. But he's been around in the challenger scene for a while. He wasn't really able to perform in challenger finals and stuff. Though he did very well especially in the regular season throughout. But he's playing such a crazy level of top laner.
Yeah.
And to be a rookie coming in, and it's like, okay, here's your schedule. Someday Huni, Flame, Impact, Haunter.
The team that you chose, Clutch Gaming, has solo. Do you think that's a different scenario?
No, I don't. But I think that the rest of the team, to me, like has proven, like, so if we want to transition to Clutch at all, like the way that I look at Clutch is again.
I haven't talked about Cloud9 yet.
Okay, well,
yeah, we'll let
anyway,
Jack.
we'll get
we
to
have a lot of discussion.
We'll get to it later.
Yeah, I actually had 2 points I want to interject, but we'll let Jack go on Cloud9 first.
Yeah.
Basically, that's my reasoning. It's just I think that it's a worse team than last year, as you yourself said, and they struggled last year in the summer split, and I don't think that we can just completely overlook that because of how they did at Worlds.
And this is going to sound like a silly statement, but I agree with a lot of what both of you said, even though you have them ranked differently. And I think one telling thing about C9 was in the Scouting Grounds draft, they traded up for the #1 pick. In the first draft, they picked a top laner with their first pick. And then when the actual draft came up, they picked League with their first pick. And if they were super confident in Licorice's ability, I don't think they would have done that.
Yeah.
So they're still... I mean, it's good long-term planning that they're trying to get double top laners from their academy team as well as their LCS team to be good, but it's going to be a learning process. And I think there is a potential that Svenskeren is godlike for this team.
Yeah.
And they actually just do amazingly well if Licorice can just neutralize the other top laners just because of how well Jensen and Svenskeren could work together and how good Sneaky and Smoothie were at Worlds. Like, that's always a potential. But when I strictly look at the regular season performance, and how much they struggled when their top laner wasn't super good, when Impact was slumping, they were like struggling to be in the top half of the league.
Yeah, they were.
And that's essentially where they're coming at this year. So that's why I don't have them 4th.
All right, it turned into 3 things. Because first of all, I said that Licorice Impact was the downgrade, and I didn't say the overall team.
So what do you think it was?
But I do think that it is. I do think that it is. I do think that it is actually slightly weaker.
Of course the team is weaker than last year.
But
so you agree. Thank you.
Unless you think the Svenskeren over Contracts is greater than Impact over
that's why it's hard to me, because I think Sven will be good.
Yeah,
but I don't
exactly.
But him being good is not, whoa, you're way better than the 2nd best jungler last year. Because I already thought Contracts was really good.
Yeah, that was what I was stumbling on. But the 2 questions I wanted to pose to you for the Clutch Gaming thing, because
so we're done with C9.
No. One of them has to do with C9 because
Okay.
the 2 points of discussion that haven't really come up here the coaching staff to me is actually a really big deal. So first of all, with Cloud9, in addition to Reaper and Robin, which to me is one of the best, pairings as far as coaching staff that the teams have, which actually they don't even have Korean speakers anymore now that they've shifted.
Right, but they still have Reaper.
Yeah, I know, but as far as the
there's
players,
no one he needs to translate.
Robin will just be translating for Reaper, I'm assuming. In addition to that, they also have West Rice as far as top lane focus that you're talking about. So they have League as their substitute or academy top laner as well. West Rice, who worked with both Impact and Ray during last year as well, will obviously be like a position coach as well for them. And if you're comparing it to Clutch Gaming, who did they have for their coach? David Lim.
Yeah.
Right. And he
was with Liquid.
Yeah, he was with Liquid. And we obviously don't know much about any specifics for coaching, but he himself said, he was like, this year I feel like I have a lot to prove to people because there's a lot question marks circulating. They didn't have the great success. So
my response,
if you're comparing
to that,
coaching staff, I feel like that's a big.
So here's what I would say to that. So I think Cloud9 has a better coaching staff. So just period.
Let's just organize a little bit so we stay on topic. So like we've done Cloud9. Let's just reveal like 4, 5, 6. Right.
Okay.
I had 100 Thieves 4th, Cloud9 5th. I guess we have to go farther. I had Echo Fox 6th.
Oh wow.
And I had Clutch Gaming 7th.
Okay.
But
so for me, I have Clutch at 4th, C9 5th. 100 Thieves 6th, and then I have Echo Fox at 7th. But like to respond to Kobe's question about the actual coaching staff comparison, one of the things I did take into consideration coaching staff, and I do think that Cloud9's is better. What I also did was compare the coaching staff that Clutch had to what Envy had before, which was essentially who they were, and they didn't have a coaching staff.
Okay, yeah.
So they had Violet.
They have Coach Lyra too.
They had Violet as a life coach, right? And that is not a shot at Violet. He was never intended to be the league head coach. He's a StarCraft pro. He came in, he fulfilled his role. I'm sure he did great, but they never had a true coaching staff. This team at least has a coaching staff now. And they have even talked about how they felt that hurt them quite a bit because they didn't even, know necessarily what to change because you have Coach Lyra, as you said, kind of jokingly, but he was a lot of what their decision-making and their improvements and stuff came from. But it's very hard to take a step back and see what's going on when you're also in the game. So having a coaching staff, I think, is a clear upgrade of what they had before. And when I'm looking at Clutch as a whole, this is essentially the 3/5 of Envy that I thought were strongest from last year. And I think that, while Solo is in the same boat as Licorice, where he may struggle against all these really good players, I don't think that Envy was in a better spot with Seraph. And I think that Niski was certainly worse than Febivin is. Like, I think this is just a team. This is basically Envy who, last year was doing pretty similarly to how like some of these other teams were in the regular season. They were 6th in regular season, 5th, 6th, same spot that's Cloud9 finished in overall. And now I just think their team is straight up better. They have better infrastructure. They have better coaching staff. Well, they have a coaching staff. Yeah. And I think they clearly upgraded the mid lane. And then top lane is, well, who knows?
Yeah. And I probably have Clutch the lowest as a 7th because Kobe, you probably have them. We didn't get yours 6th, maybe?
I think I have
7th?
6.
6. Okay. Anyway, I agree with you in the sense that a lot of this could work, but I also think that Envy was worse than their record showed in the summer split. In the spring split with Apollo, Hakuho, and Lyra, they were 10th. And then in the summer split, they were in that bottom pack for most of the year until they like surged at the end and pulled into the playoffs because everyone else, in my opinion, was just like falling apart at the bottom of the league. So Apollo and Hakuho, while they have won lane, like Apollo has never to me been that guy that actually carries a late game team fight. And what I will give you is that Fabivin is really good. He was the first team EU mid laner in the summer split of Europe last year. So there's a chance that pulls it together. But Solo in the top lane and a coaching staff.
And Lyra has been really
they also
good.
have Shakares, if you know him.
Okay, he's
like
been a really good content creator. I want to see how good he is coaching this team. So like
I'm sure they have other analysts.
Yeah. And I know that the Houston Rockets are like super invested in this, and I do think they'll grow into a very powerful organization one year. But I think there's a lot of really good teams in the LCS this year, which is why I kind of put them 7th. And Lyra, Apollo, and Hakuho, while that is like a cool core to keep from Envy, they're keeping the core of what was essentially a relegation zone team last year.
Oh, it's not fair to say. It's not fair to say
6th.
that. Okay,
That's averages 8.
Yeah, but you're looking at Summer
they took
Split
out the worms
where they
though.
changed roster in Summer Split.
They
right?
kept
Like,
the core.
yeah, they kept the core, but they changed other players. This is like if I and you swap into TSM, does that matter? Like, can you not compare that?
That's
right?
not
like,
a core.
no,
That's
but I'm
2
saying
people.
if you keep Hanser and Bjergsen and you keep like Biofrost or whatever, and you swap in 2 random players, it's not necessarily the same thing. It's 40% of the overall team, and it's bigger than that because it's about how the players interact. It's also changing both of your solo laners, who were 2 of the worst performing solo laners consistently in the whole league.
Niski was pretty good at the end of the year.
Nissi, yeah,
and that is
but
why
Nissi wasn't even there in spring exactly when they were 10th. So they were 5th, 6th. They went 3-2 against CLG. Otherwise, they would have been finishing in the top 4, right? Like, so to take a step from that to then call them a relegation zone team, to me is just disingenuous. Like, this is a team that is, I think, big upgrades as far as overall for solo lane, because I think Febvin is a big upgrade, and I think that Seraph has performed so poorly for a long time in the NA LCS that I think solo should be around that level with a bigger upside, you know, with the potential to improve. And you've now massively improved the infrastructure. You've improved, like, given them a coaching staff. You've given them some of the support that, you know, it seemed like Envy did not have. I just can't see, you know, really comparing what this is now to a team that could be relegated. You know, it's day and night to me.
Okay, I understand that, but like a 10th place team with the 3 players is still the same players, right? And the only player on this team that has found success has been Fabivin, and that was like years ago.
And when they were 10th, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't that the split where Lyra was considered the best jungler in the whole league?
He did
right?
win
and
LCS jungler. No, I agree with you that they have like good
and he was
players
dragging them across the finish line with some of these soul laners who are inting every game. So like I think it's a strong core. Lyra still performed in the summer split. Like, I just can't see this as a team that is, you know, comparable with the 10th place kind of thing of the past.
Well, let's compare them to the team that you had in 4th place.
100 Thieves.
100 Thieves.
All right.
Because I also had them in 5th place. I had them closer. So
all right,
we all are off by 1 with our three
except
rankings.
for him, Echo Fox.
Yeah,
he is another one.
I'm betting on I'm betting on Dardoch. We'll see about that. And Huni. But to go to 100 Thieves, when I first heard about 100 Thieves and
take me back.
Take me back to the origins of franchising, and I was like, they were one of the last teams that I remember was like leaked from Jacob Wolf. They're like, we're bringing in Nade Shot. He's gonna run the whole thing. I was like, psh, these guys are last place. Like, they were my front runner for last place.
Just with Nade Shot as the owner, you were immediately
literally everyone else was like, we're partnering with people who know League of Legends, right? Like, they're either like a super big basketball organization who knows sports, or they're going to be someone who's really familiar with League. And Nade Shot was, as far as I knew, like, I didn't follow Call of Duty, but I was like, he's like a famous Call of Duty YouTuber. Like, that's how I saw him. But I really like what he's done, and I really like the content they've been making, and it's actually starting to sell me on the team as well as seeing the roster. So
first episode of their show was really good.
That was badass.
It was actually really
You should
good.
actually watch it. I watched it last night. It's good. It's a good
called The Heist.
doc series.
Check it out.
Yeah. He's a good YouTuber.
Sellouts. Whoa.
Yeah, he's a good YouTuber.
It was actually really good.
But on top of that, I like Prawley.
Yeah.
He brought him in really early. And so that tells me that this is Prawley as well as then leveraging like esports experience from Nade Shot, but I don't think he's trying to be too hands-on about like, yeah, I know who a good top laner and jungler is. Like, I think he's putting a lot of trust in Prawley, who's good. On top of that, Someday is super good. Afromu has a lot to prove now that he's no longer on COG, went for what we assume to be a big contract, joining a new team. It's literally just a mash of 5 players who haven't really played together before, except for Meteos and Ryu on Phoenix One, who were actually a 4th place team when those guys were mainly on that team in the spring split.
Meteos specifically said that he joined this team because they had Ryu. Also.
And he really liked
So there you go. There's your synergy, Jack.
Yeah. Anyway, so like, it is obviously a bet on this team, but from what I've seen, they're starting to institute a good culture. I feel like it's a strongly backed team financially with how strong their gaming house facilities look like, and also the roster they were able to attract. Like, they lured some big names to that team in Someday and Afromu. And all those things together, like, actually makes me really confident in this team that they're going to finish 4th or higher.
I find it really surprising, to kind of like pick at it a little bit, that you have, more faith in like the Meteos, Ryu, Cody-san type core than you do in some of these other teams. Because Meteos, while he did have some good games certainly on Phoenix One, he was pretty vocal about not really being super motivated, not really trying that hard. Maybe he will be really reinvigorated, but it's been a couple of years since he's been truly like a top NA jungler. And Ryu, to me, has been very up and down. He's also been someone who has kind of lacked motivation. Oftentimes, it seems like, I believe it was at the end of last year he took a break. It was at the end of last split.
He wanted to quit, but then he played the promotion tournament with them and just was, to me, totally checked out.
Yeah, he seemed pretty burned out. Someday, fully on board. Someday was one of, if not the best top laner in North America last year. I think he will continue to perform at that level. Then you have Cody-san, who, I think Cody-san was a solid middle of the pack AD carry. We've added some really strong ones with Sven, but he was also paired with who I believe to be the clear best support in North America last year. And Aphromoo did not perform nearly as well. I think Aphromoo is a great shot caller. I think that Aphromoo is practicing really hard and playing a ton of games, and maybe he will have an incredible season. But I just see. I mean, Someday is the only one on this team where I'm like, yep, he's for sure going to be really good. And then everyone else is kind of a question mark. And the fact that the only 2 people who have played together is Meteos and Ryu makes it really hard for me to put them as high as 4th above a Cloud9, above a Clutch, in my opinion, just because there's so many intangibles. And it's not like this is a team where it's just holy crap, look at all this raw talent. They're just going to slam lanes. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like a team that has to synergize super well to really pick up wins.
I think Prawley, having previously coached Ryu, eased a lot of my concerns. You're bringing up very valid points. But a lot of what he also talked about in, I forget what interview it was though. These guys that have worked together, like Meteos and Ryu, and probably previously having coaching him. I'm feeling, part of my placement was feeling like Prawley is going to have a pretty big impact early on. Him working with Aphromoo gives me, that classic, super good preparation outside, because Prawley he was one of the best coaches. He was voted best coach in Europe multiple times, I think, actually.
Yeah, and the big knock about him is that his teams haven't necessarily performed in playoffs and worlds. But in the regular season, he's been stellar.
Yeah, exactly. And so then they have him plus Aphromoo, who is, whatever you want to say, maybe his solo queue isn't as high rated as you want, or he has mechanical mistakes sometimes. He is an extremely good in-game leader and can keep a team focused. So what you're saying, So what you're saying you want to see from this team of they have to synergize super well in game or whatever, and they have to be really focused. I feel like they have the parts to make that happen. Is why I kind of gave them a bump up there.
And they are incredibly experienced. Prawley was a pro player in 2013, has been coaching for 3 years. Aphromoo has been around since 2013. Meteos was the first person to win an MVP. We didn't have one in spring of 2013. They're old school. These guys have all, Ryu is famous for dying. But he's been around for so long.
And Cody-san, I think, to his credit, has improved a lot, right? And that's why I definitely think this is going to be, a playoff team, because I do think that a lot of these things can come together. But I think that, this kind of pack of teams is so competitive. Yeah. It's really hard for me to edge them out above some of these others. But I think,
and we're arguing over the smallest of things.
Exactly. And totally.
It would have been so much easier for us to just be A tier, B tier, these pack of 4 teams.
That's no fun.
That's no fun.
Yeah.
Exactly. So next team after 100 Thieves, we've done C9, we've done 100 Thieves, we've kind of done Clutch.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys have more to say about those teams, we certainly can.
I think it's time to go to Echo.
I think we got them.
I think it's time to go to Echo Fox.
Yeah.
Echo Fox, baby, roll them dice.
Playoffs, right?
I have them in playoffs.
So we'll let you start.
At 6th. Where do you guys have them?
I have them 7th.
So we're all
close.
We're all very close.
Yeah.
And I think
nobody really wants to take the gamble, because
if I really wanted to take the gamble, I'd put them higher.
I honestly almost had them 4th. I was because I was thinking about, do I want to? Is this where I want to roll my dice? Right? Is this where I want to roll the dice?
The cryptocurrency of the LCS. You can win a lot of money, or you can lose all that money really fast.
I was like, wait a second.
Do you invest in Bitcoin, Kobe?
No, I did
Exactly
not.
it.
They're cryptocurrency in the LCS.
Because
you could get rich or they could get relegated.
This
I have Ethereum, and even though it's down, I still have. Anyways, let me get back to Echo Fox here. I was literally, I had them on the spreadsheet here in fourth place. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to shake this up. I'm rolling them dice, baby.
Punch
and then
numbers,
I was like, wait a
fourth.
second. I remember back to last year when we started the dive. And at the very beginning, he had just joined CLG. And I was like, oh, you know what? They have the great coaching staff. You know, CLG, the culture and the infrastructure is really built
team friendship
to like
happiness.
make this happen. And I was like, all right, it's probably going to happen, you know? But if it doesn't happen here, then, you know, I just don't see it happen anywhere, blah, blah, blah. And it obviously did not.
Kobe, who is the only mid laner Dardoch has ever really succeeded with?
Who?
Phoenix.
Oh,
guess who he's playing with? Phoenix. Not Froggen.
Roll them dice, Jet. Put them out there, dude. Like, because if you look at it individual player by player, you're like, Hooney, I love this guy. He's insane. Dardoch, like he can't pop off, right?
So let me just stop you after the first one.
And then I was like,
I'm done. You're like, you go lay my lane. Hooney, I love this guy. And then there's 4 others too. And they can win some games.
So, okay.
Wait. Oh, let me jump from top lane down to bottom lane then. Okay. Remember Team Dignitas.
Skip over the 2 in the middle. You know, you're at top lane. We're back in the bottom lane. All right, go.
Come on, we're trying to keep this one organized.
Yeah.
We're organized on Echo Fox.
It's already a scattered.
We're organized.
Scattered episode. The bottom lane. Yeah. Let's talk about Dignitas, Altec, and Adrian coming in hot. As soon as he joins the team, smack. They're just
playoffs,
clapping everybody, right?
Yep.
That's got to be another strong point. Yeah, take it there. Baton has been passed.
Boom. Someday was a top laner. Hooney's a top laner. They're both
you have
great.
Consent, by the way.
Right?
We agree.
You talk about.
Just reminding you, we have the same rank.
Team Dignitas had Keen and Shrimp.
Yeah.
Dardoch and Phoenix totally could be just as good.
Wow.
And then you have the bottom lane. But
so really,
none of us.
If you look at Hooney, he was on SKT. Phoenix. Also Korean, Faker. Korean, you know.
None of us actually bought this cryptocurrency, is I think where we're actually settling, because otherwise we would put them at 4th. And I have some like overwhelmingly negative feelings about this organization, actually.
Really?
Yeah. So Echo Fox is
my boy Rick Fox.
2 years ago, he made Echo Fox, and he is super personable, amazingly charming, great pep talks. But they had a message 2 years ago about being this, like, we're building for the long term. We are a team that invests in player development, and Froggen is our Michael Jordan. We're all in on this guy. They still haven't said why Froggen's not on the team.
He's not even on their academy team.
They had a 10-man roster last year. They're returning DeMonte, 1 player. They switched out 9. So, like, this is where I'm torn. Because either they don't know what they're doing, or they're actually just like, we want to stick with our messaging. We just invested in the wrong players, and we don't want to kick them on the way out, which is what I really hope it is. Because otherwise, they're a mess. Which is why it's like, I have to just kind of hedge in my bets.
Is Dardoch the guy that long-term you're building around?
Maybe, right? He's still really young.
He's really good.
And maybe eventually he will mature to a point where he exists in a 5-man team.
I think this is an interesting thing you bring up about the negative feelings about the organization overall. Because then I'll always try and put myself in their position and go through the theoretical. So if there was a big dumpster fire that happened that we don't know about internally, Echo Fox, like everybody hated each other. They're all something happened.
They haven't said a negative word about the players that are no longer on their team.
Exactly.
Which
like
you can actually credit. Like that is a professional way to get rid of players if you feel like you need to.
So the fact that we don't have information is super frustrating to us.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to take that as a definite negative or a definite positive.
I agree. It just means there's a lot of uncertainty.
Exactly. When literally everybody's reaction to seeing this roster is, whoa, like that has potential, but like this, when that word is used a lot, but this roster is one of the biggest dice moves because of the personalities that are on it. And it's not just Dardoch. Everybody loves to jump on that train.
Phoenix and Adrian as
but,
well.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. All these guys have had moments where they're like, This guy's uncoachable. This guy is pissing off his teammates. That guy's,
Why did Adrian leave another team after making playoffs?
Adrian has swapped so many teams. So has Dardoch. Both have performed very well at times and been, getting
a. So has?
No.
Oh, so has.
So has Adrian.
So has.
All right.
Both of them have performed very well at times and gotten a lot of praise for their individual performances at times. But they keep hopping teams, which generally points to, issues working with others, issues working within the system, or problems with teammates, these sorts of things. Phoenix, you obviously saw Breaking Point. Phoenix and Dardoch had a lot of issues there. Does this team have the infrastructure? Does this team have the coaching staff to really kind of like pull it together? It's hard to know. I think regardless of what happens, Huni will win some games for this team. I think Huni is going to be the best top laner in NA, whether this team is 10th or 2nd or whatever. I believe that going into the season, he's the best top laner. And I think that there's such a clear win condition for Dardoch that it's hard to see them not winning some games, right? It's like, hey, you have a talented mechanical jungler, and you have this guy who's going to be a monster on carries in the top lane. Go there all the time. That's basically what Immortals did in the past when it was Huni and Reignover, right? That's such a clear win condition. You get Huni ahead. Even at the top world level, he can carry you some games. So I think that they certainly will win games. Whether they are that dumpster fire or whether they are a team that really skyrockets to the top is going to depend, I think, largely on personalities, how well they work together, and also how are Altec and Adrian going to perform? How is Phoenix going to perform individually? Because there's certainly some big inconsistencies. Because while Phoenix has at times been like, wow, he is performing incredibly well, he has gotten criticism sometimes for narrow champion pool. He has certainly gotten criticism for consistency issues. He's had a lot of ups and downs.
I definitely agree. Right there with you, number 7. We're
Boom.
both have
Let's
there.
move on. Next, we haven't talked about FlyQuest.
Are we running out of time? Let's go.
Yeah, well, it's been a long episode. I feel like we've done a good job. We're going to close it out strong. Okay. We still have 3 teams we haven't talked about.
FlyQuest.
So I made a last-minute tweak.
They're your 7th, or
so we're actually on 8th now because we've talked about 7 teams. Okay. Our aggregate ranking so far is TSM 1, Team Liquid and COG are tied for 2nd because I put COD first. C9 is 4th. They're 1 point higher than 100 Thieves. Then Clutch Gaming, Echo Fox, and now we're at 8th.
So our last 3, let's just list them off and see if we do have more differences.
My order
last time
is Golden Guardians, FlyQuest, Optic.
We have differences.
I have FlyQuest, Golden Guardians, and Optic.
I have FlyQuest, Optic, then Golden Guardians. So
so
we have another full 3 spread here.
Oh man!
And this is, to me, is you're entering probably another tier, right? This is probably like another kind of grouping of teams that I think are. These are the teams that would be much more surprised if they made playoffs. And if they were to, it's like you're barely squeaking kind of thing. But this is like what I was talking about at the top of the episode is I found it very hard to look at any of these 3 teams and be like, this is the worst team in the league. It felt kind of weird when I'm looking at individual players in the roster to be like, oh yeah, of course Arrow's in last place. Oh yeah, of course, it kind of felt weird to say that and think about that. But I just think that the competition across the league has really gone up. Like there's been so many good imports coming in. There's so many strong rosters overall that you need such a damn good team to actually be near the top side of the league anymore. Like when I look at FlyQuest, I actually felt like they have a pretty big upside. There's a lot of young players. Flame, I actually thought was the best performing top laner in Summer Split. I thought he was incredible individually. You have Onda, who there's quite a bit of hype about, unproven. Stunt, who performed very well when he was in the league, and then Fly, there's some more question marks. He was in Challenger, and then Wild Turtle, right? Like this is a team where I was looking at them originally, and I'm like, this could be actually a pretty damn good team. But then you start looking at some of the other rosters, it starts getting harder to move them any further up the ranks. And for me, I just felt like the FlyQuest team is a team that has a lot of upside. Basically, like I do have some faith in their bot lane. I have a lot of faith in their top lane, and then I'm less sure about the jungle in the mid, and that's kind of why I have them in 8th place.
Yeah, and there was so much competition, I feel like, when this started, and I feel like a few teams ended up scrambling a little bit and had rosters that don't necessarily make as much sense.
Yeah.
And FlyQuest did re-sign Wild Turtle, flipped out everyone else, which makes sense because they weren't actually a very good team at the very end of the Summer Split, so they would want to rebuild, and they are taking some bets on those guys, which could work, but because of the inexperience and because Stunt bounced around those teams, I don't put them higher. And we've discussed ad nauseum a lot of these other teams super high up. Kobe, do you have anything else to add about FlyQuest? Because you had them 8th, above Golden Guardians and Optic.
Yeah, actually I did. Yeah, I was looking at that again and I was like,
You're changing.
Well, it's just because I also remember saying like I'm not accepting Scrim result or Scrim God status or whatever.
Who was
anymore.
Scrim God status?
They have
Anda?
Anda as well as Stunt, who a lot of the hype for these guys and a lot of good feelings are because everyone's like, oh yeah, they get challenger top, in Korea.
Stunt was great in LCS,
and Stunt was good in the LCS, but like.
Well,
I actually am more hyped for the Immortal subs than I am for Fly. I was not impressed recently with Fly's play. So like looking back at it again, I guess I am hanging more hopes on Flame and the other 2 Immortal subs, and of course Wild Turtle, who is a strong. All right, yeah, all right. I feel pretty good.
Right.
I'm
You feel pretty
there.
good.
But again,
if you did really buy into it, you would rank them higher, right? Like if they
Yeah.
were Scrim Gods, you would have ranked them higher.
Yeah.
So you're not buying in. It's just the rest of the teams don't necessarily have that big of a plan, and that's where I can try and justify my Golden Guardians at 8th, because I think when you look at their roster on paper and just the objective strength of a lot of the players, no offense to those players, like there's really strong players and they haven't necessarily found the success lately.
Yeah.
Other rosters look better as a core 5. But I think there's going to be so much disorganization. And I think there's a chance that Contracts, High, all those guys work together really well, and they're all going to have a chip on their shoulder because of people like us saying they have the weakest roster on paper,
and
which could really motivate them.
They're all Americans. They all like English primary language. Communication should not be an issue. So that I definitely think is the big upside for Golden Guardians. And I actually see Golden Guardians much more similar to what FlyQuest was last year.
Yeah.
Where they could come out of the gate hot
and win a bunch of games.
And win a bunch of games at the start. Do I think that would keep up? No, I do not. But that still can give you enough of a head start that you're not going to be finishing lower in the standings. I just think that every year the competition is getting harder and harder in the LCS. More and more amazing players are coming in, and it gets very, very tough unless you just have incredibly individually talented players to really get to the top. But it does feel weird to like looking at any of these 3 teams to say Contract is going to be on the last place team feels weird. Say Arrow, who was MVP in Spring Split, is gonna be on the last place team, feels weird, and also to say Flame should be on the last place team feels weird. Like those are 3 players that were all at or near the top.
So you're feeling weird.
I am.
Yeah, well, and
it just shows how good the competition is.
Really quickly, like I know there's going to be those critics that are like, you guys hype it every year and say everyone is always getting stronger, because in a way that is still true. Like the sport is really young. No one's retiring anymore.
Yeah.
Right? So the players that are getting pushed out are getting pushed out by players that are just better than them. And the best players that have been around for years, like Aframu and Double Lift and those guys that were here in Season 3, are staying. People are coming back. Meteos is coming back, finding a starting role. So there are fewer slots for players to play, which is why you have people like Arrow, who was an MVP a year ago, who I'm putting on a 10th place team somehow.
Yeah. And I mean, part of it also to me is not necessarily like I'm trying to say, oh, hey, like NA is now better than this other region. It's more about the parity within the region, and it's more about the overall strength. Like I think that when you compare the difference between 10th and 5th, 10th and 1st and things like this, it is much smaller than I think a lot of other regions. That is one of the strengths of the region, is that there's a lot of players that want to come to North America. There is obviously, with franchising coming in, there's a lot of money being injected in the scene, which attracts even more good players, and it makes it very competitive. But FlyQuest is a team that I'm actually pretty excited to watch, because I do think that the upside is very high. While I'm not expecting them to finish super high, like if Onda and Fly can really perform well. Like if Onda can have a breakout season, we have actually had a lot of good NA junglers coming out and having good starts. When you look at Mike Young, when you look at Dardoch, when you look at Contracts, when you look at a lot of these guys, they do have hot starts. And if Onda could achieve that, this is a team that could get a lot higher in the standings, I think, because you're looking at a solid bot lane and you're looking at a really strong top laner, and then there is some possibility there. But it's definitely tough to really see a lot of these teams kind of eclipsing teams that are in the playoffs.
Right. Kobe, anything to add?
Well, let's be specific with the team. So
We could talk about optics.
let's
then.
move. Yeah, let's
do Optic.
Let's do Optic. Then.
So based on, I just want to make sure we have all of the rankings right so that we can actually lock in our dive top 10. Kobe, you had FlyQuest 8th, Optic 9th, Golden Guardians 10th. And Azale, you had FlyQuest 8th, Golden Guardians 9th, Optic 10th.
Yep.
So that means our total power rankings are TSM, TLCOG tied for 2nd, C9 4th, 100 Thieves 5th, Clutch Gaming 6th, Echo Fox 7th, FlyQuest 8th, Golden Guardians 9th, Optic 10th. Official power rankings.
Let's go over Optic then, as we were just about to, because to me, actually, one of the biggest worries, you keep bringing up Arrow. Arrow in lane phase actually started to cause a lot of worries for me. And Lemonation also in lane phase specifically, like this is a very specific time of game and a very specific area like for these to focus in on. But that to me seems like a very scary weakness to have on part of the map, considering how much you can really blow open the game with something like that. I was talking to a lot of the people, from scrims and stuff. And they're like, yeah, hyper carries are very big right now. Even though it's a small area of the game, and they do have, Power of Evil is a big name brought over from Europe. And Zig and Acadian both had like
have shown promise.
Yeah, decent splits. Like even at the beginning when Acadian first came in, they're like it was super insane. And there is talent. There is some good talent on this team. That specific question mark of bottom lane phase.
Didn't you play against Acadian yesterday, Kobe?
I did. I'm not gonna bring that up. I know what you want me to say, and I'm not gonna say it.
Go op.gg, right, Kobe. That's it.
I did win because you're making it super mysterious.
I'm proud of you.
We did win, but yeah. Anyways,
it was just a solo queue game.
It was a solo queue game. We did win, and I was super
Kobe better than Acadian.
Bopped him.
Oh, I hate you guys. He specifically was.
You hearing this, Acadian? You hearing all the shit he's talking?
Oh my god. I hate you.
This is why playing as a pro player just sucks. Like, if you ever lose a solo queue game, people are like, I beat a pro player. It's amazing. I mean, Kobe's not saying that, but we're saying it for him.
We're saying it for him.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to.
He beat a pro player.
Because he's thinking it. We're just reading his mind.
I was super hyped, and I was like jumping around the office.
You should be excited.
Captain Flowers was like spectating the game. He saw was like watching from the beginning. But what was I talking about? You guys
are talking about Zig and
Acadian.
Zig and that's why had some good splits, right? And
Anyways, this team. Okay, we were talking about this team. The other question mark, I really like Romain that they brought in to run the team and everything like that. But their choice for a coach, the previous French caster,
Zabutin.
Yeah. Like he has no track record with me, so that's a question mark, and to me, something that's. I have that much of an unknown is super scary, considering what he's going to have to piece together, because these guys don't have history.
The other thing is, even if you put whoever your most confident is for a coach, right? Like if you put Reaper on this team, does it change the ranking, right? Like for me, it's tough because it's less about the coaching and more about like the raw talent and of the actual team. And I just think that it's going to be very tough for a lot of these guys to compete, and honestly for Zabutin, it kind of puts him in a bit of a tough position, because even if he does a good job as a coach, I don't think this is a team that's going to be skyrocketing to the top of the rankings.
Yeah. And I do want to, we have Optic as total 10th. I put them 10th, but I do want to have that positive spin on it as well, because I sat down with Romain shortly after all the rosters were announced. Like, I talked to him for a while about the process, and he said a lot of really good stuff that was convincing me that they can find some long-term success. Like, again, they have strong backing. Zabutin and him are both older. They have held professional jobs. They're going to try and run it very much like a professional place, where your practice environment is where you're able to practice. They have, relatively strict rules, and they trust that Zabutin has the game knowledge, and they have a lot of motivated players, right? Acadian and Zig haven't necessarily won that much. They have a lot to prove. Lemonation has never found success without High. Oftentimes, everyone says High is this great, amazing leader, but Lemonation, a lot of time, has been a great strategic mind in League of Legends, and people say he's over the hill. Like, if those things aren't true, they can win games, right? It's just after everything we've talked about, we're not going to predict it.
And also, To be fair, I think the organization itself, as far as gaming, even just gaming history, is very successful. Really big in a lot of shooters. They've had so much success. And as far as brands coming into the league, whether or not this roster individually is very successful, I have confidence that Optic long term can be a very successful team in the league. And I mean, this is a team that everyone thinks about, Team Solo Mid, as the most popular team in North America, and they have been in League of Legends for so long. But as far as actual gaming brands, I mean, Optic is massive. Optic is bigger than TSM. They have a bigger following, a bigger fan base, across all the titles than TSM does. I would say certainly. Even just looking at like Twitter followers, which isn't the best metric, but it's TSM has 1.5 million, Optic has 3.3 or whatever million, right?
I mean, Nadeshot has like 2 million subscribers on his YouTube channel.
Exactly.
There's some really big brands coming from Call of Duty.
Some really big brands coming in, and I think that's very exciting to bring more attention to the league and to maybe find some more players who are interested in watching League as an esport and to see how these other brands that have been so successful in other leagues, both the NBA teams coming in and teams like Optic and the backing of Nadeshot and some of these guys, to see how they can build it up and long term what they are going to do, because it's impossible for everyone to succeed right now, but maybe some of these teams can do it better, and some of them can kind of eclipse some of the teams that have been here for a long time when given enough years to do it.
Yeah, and at least at the start of the season, I'm excited for like actually every game.
Yeah.
Because I'm still going to be really excited to watch Optic play against Nadeshot right early on with 100 Thieves. Like every matchup on day one is going to be exciting. Let's move on to some Twitter questions though, since we have had some pretty dedicated fans asking us some good questions. This one I really liked. It's from Sir Birdplane. I'm thinking of getting people into LCS, but with stuff like the pick ban and the amount of stuff on screen during the game, there's a lot to explain. Any chance for a primer for new viewers for those and other pro play things to know?
So I will say there actually this is a bit outdated maybe, but I think a lot of the same things would apply. For 2016 World Finals, we actually did do a noob stream, which we explained a lot of stuff. We also did do a YouTube video before that was just basically explaining, hey, this is what this means on the spectator client. This is what that means on the spectator client. So there are changes in the game, but overall that would probably give you a pretty good primer.
Yeah. But I also want to say this, like whenever I've tried to get someone into a sport, like, hey, I don't know basketball, I don't know football, like it doesn't work to sit them in front of the screen and say, pay attention. Just watch the game with them and answer their questions. That is the best way to get them into it. Like, sure, watch the 5-minute primer if you can keep their attention that long, but actually just watching the game and being there with them, I think is the best way to get them in.
Yeah. Even a game that's seemingly as simple as basketball, like I started thinking about trying to like explain it to someone.
All the little
Once
rules.
you get past get the ball in the hoop and you start like trying to explain picks and different
Yeah, why was that a foul? They
plays
hit
and,
each
like,
other. It's
three
like,
in the
well,
key,
because he wasn't
shot
moving
clock,
and his hands were high enough,
blocking,
Yeah.
not allowed to touch his
charging,
hand.
etc.
yeah, it just gets icky.
You can't goaltend the ball, but you can pick it up and dunk it. Like there's a lot of weird stuff.
You know where you should go? Go out, download the game, play it with your friends,
There you
invite
go.
everybody that you know. Free to play,
Free to play,
LeagueofLegends.com.
But the noob stream is actually pretty good for that, because it is just watching a game
Yeah.
and it's much more basic level
As a
of,
starter.
hey, he's
And then
doing
watch the
this.
live stuff because
Yeah,
that's exciting.
for sure.
Also, did you know, like, a lot of our viewers just recently started watching. So we have like a tremendous amount of new viewers. You are not alone out there.
To the dive, welcome. new
Everybody's
viewers.
just out there. No, to the North American LCS.
None of them can stand us for long.
Yeah.
Yeah. You look at the drop off, it's like Twitter questions. No. Next one, Johnny Pastrami tweets at Ol Prisky. With the switch back to BO1s, do you think NA and EU LCS will see a dip in their performance on the international stage?
No, I don't think it matters. At the end of the day, the amount of games you play on stage is so small compared to the overall amount of games that you are playing, right? Like there's so many scrims. Yes, there's stage experience, but there was so much talk about, oh my God, best of threes is going to be it. NA is going to be the best. Didn't make a difference. NA's performances have been the same pretty much overall when it's best of ones and best of threes. EU made it to semifinals of Worlds. In the past when it was best of ones as well. Best of threes does not inherently mean your region is going to do better. I just do not believe it's going to affect international performance.
100% agree. Next question. At Damn For Real Lol, how would you compare this preseason to other preseasons? Elemental drags, different smites. Was it too long, and should there have been more or less?
I had the feeling that I wanted to play ranked as soon as I figured out what was super strong for me. So I mean, I think a lot of people had the feeling of like, oh, I want to play ranked now. And so it probably felt a bit too long. But as far as like trying to work through all the balance changes and them trying to get a handle on what direction they want the start of the season, which is very important to have a good start. I would like them to take as much time as they need to have a good start, because the launch is so important.
I think about pros and cons of they've done it a couple different ways. We've had the season start in December, but then what ends up happening is the game is usually pretty stagnant over that couple weeks because people do take Christmas break.
Oh my God.
Oh no. And then the game doesn't necessarily get balanced there. So having a ranked season was something that could be completely out of line, kind of sucks there. And yes, the preseason does feel long, but I like the fact that they started preseason right after Worlds. Normally it's been delayed. The time after Worlds when you're still playing on the old patch, to me, is like the most boring time in League when you're just waiting for the preseason changes. So as far as maximizing pros and cons, I really like what they did this year.
And as for me personally, I just enjoy trying different stuff, and like I don't really care about grinding ranked. So like I play a lot of Phil. It's fun to just keep trying new stuff. Like it takes forever to almost get through all these different champions, all these different roles, and try all the different things you want to try. If you are just specifically trying to find like, for you, what's the best thing for me in jungle? This is what I want to do, and then you want to smash people, then you don't need as much time. But I'm still experimenting, playing different roles, playing different champions, playing different rune setups, and it's been really fun because I think there's a lot of pretty cool combinations to try out, and every week it feels like I have something new that I've been wanting to play.
Yeah, even though the competitive side of me was like, oh my God, I want to grind this right now because I want to abuse, and I think that if it goes on longer, other people will also figure out what I feel like and even if that's not true or whatever,
solve the equation.
Yeah, I think I'm so smart or whatever. Yeah. But the other side is that because there was no ranked, I was just spamming ranked flex queue with my friends, and like rank doesn't matter or whatever. But we had a ton of fun, like for almost a month, right? Where it's what you're saying. I actually got back into playing assassin junglers, and now I'm going to use those in the season. And I was originally only playing those because, like, oh yeah, it's just fun with my friends.
And if the off season was shorter, you wouldn't have done that.
Maybe.
So, and I picked up mid lane. I still suck at it, but I'm much better than when I started.
There you go.
Awesome. So I think this was our longest episode ever. I think we're clocking in at like 87 minutes.
That's very long.
Yeah.
All right.
It's the most exciting season ever. I'm looking forward to the dive later. They tell me we have more slides than ever.
You mean
this is the dive?
Yeah.
This is going to be a good this or that.
Woo! All right. That's
this or that. Are we on this or that or the dive?
Yeah. That's going to do it for this episode of The Dive. NA LCS starts this weekend. It's 1:30 p.m. PST for the pregame show with Champ Select, if everything goes right, starting at 2 p.m. Big matchups, TSM-TL, Optic 100 Thieves, Clutch Gaming Golden Guardians, because Houston Rockets and Golden State Warriors own those teams. A lot of really cool stuff. I think CLG plays C9 as well. Like,
I like that. That's the afterthought.
Yeah,
it wasn't on the script.
CLG Cloud9.
It's going to be really good, and thank you so much for sending in all the Twitter questions and keep hitting us up with those. And we're going to be maybe a bit more involved in some of the the Reddit threads and stuff. So if you guys want to post your own power rankings there, we can see how well or how poorly we did according to the community. So thanks again, guys. See you next week.